Hey, how you doing this morning? This is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show. Well, it could be that it's not morning when you're viewing this, where you're at. But anyway, I was searching around in my library, well, my pilot's junk, and I was looking for a DAC catalog that might have that DMR 3000 radio in it, but I couldn't find any of my DAC catalogs. Maybe I threw them out, but I did find this, and what it is, it's the Short Space Wave magazine. It's not one word there, it's Short Space Wave magazine, and this was produced over, I think, in the UK, and it was around for quite a long time. And this particular one is April of 1996. It cost, what's marked on here was 2.5 pounds, and of course I got this locally at one of the bookstores. I can't remember the bookstore, but it was a popular bookstore that went out of business, and they carried a lot of these overseas, mainly from Europe, magazines about technology, and they had 3 or 4 of them about shortwave and ham radio and stuff like that, and they were quite expensive in the United States because you had to include the fact that the stores had to pay for shipping. So I didn't subscribe to these magazines. I just went in there, kind of looked through it. I found what I liked, then I bought that one, paid full price, which probably was about $3.50 or $4.50, kind of expensive. But they had some great articles, and apparently this is one that I kept. I don't know what I did with the other ones. Like I say, there were 2 or 3 magazines I used to get that were from Europe, mostly from the UK. Don't know where they got. They could be in the attic. I don't know. Ooh, could be in the attic. That would be a fire hazard. I better check on that when it gets cooler weather. Okay, anyway, so I was going to show you this magazine. I had to prop it up there because of the glare. And we're just going to take a quick look inside. Again, this is April 1996. And I'll zoom in here. I'm using lower resolution 480p because I get more zoom capability out of that than I do the higher resolution. So that's why I'm using that. It's kind of a trade-off. So here we go. This is the, it says it's the filter special. So they got John Wilson, who was very popular in reviewing equipment and stuff like that related to shortwave listening and amateur radio. He's the one that did the review of filters for receivers. Also, in this issue, they had a review of the MFJ 784B digital processor filter, and then they had a review of the Sony ICF SW1000. Now, I had never heard of a 1000. I've heard of a 100, but not a 1000. Sony receiver, and here is the AOR AR7030. AOR made some pretty good receivers and scanners, but they typically were a little expensive in the United States. Okay, we're just going to glance through a couple pages here. Here is a 2-page ad for Uniden, and the supplier in the UK was called Nevada. I don't know if that's how it was pronounced over in the UK. Here's a couple of Uniden receivers. I have, or had, who knows if I still got it or not, this one right here, which is a 9000 XLT. And the reason it jumped out and became popular because it was one of the first scanner radios that you could actually put in alphanumerics for each channel to tell you what that channel was about. So I got one, again, used. The other ones, I don't think I had any of the other ones. Moving right along. Now here's something that I thought was fantastic for the time when it came out. This was really something you needed to have. And what this was is a very, very fast scanner. It had no audio, but what you could do is with the appropriate scanner radio, you could connect the output of this thing to your scanner like it's shown right here. I'll zoom in a little bit. Oops. Let me get my pin out of the way there. So there it is, showing connected to a scanner. I believe it worked with one of my Bearcat or Uniden scanners, and it worked quite well. So this thing would be out there sampling for strong signals, and so I can remember the first time I used it, I hooked it up to my scanner radio, and I went to a mall, a shopping mall, and I was really amazed at things that were going on at that time. This was at least 20 years ago. Was going on at that time. So I love this thing. Matter of fact, I've got it right here. I use it. I use it for oh gosh, there goes everything. Let me unplug it here. Keep it on charge. Here it is right here. I've done a review of this. And this was the Optoelectronics, which was, they were just south of me, I think in Sarasota or Fort Myers. And so the manufacturing plant, and they produced all kinds of things like this. Matter of fact, I even have one that came out later that actually have audio. So it was a true scanner. So this was a pretty cool little device. It has a built-in battery pack, which is unique to this radio. So it's will not charge anymore, so I have to use an AC adapter all the time. So that's that thing. Moving right along. Let's go zoom back out so you can see the magazine again. We're going to skim through. I love these old magazines. I looked, when I found this yesterday, I looked on the internet to see if I could find where anybody has scanned these things in and they're available on the internet, because this is a great reference magazine for old equipment or just articles in general that are applicable all the time. Unfortunately, I didn't find it. I found a couple of PDFs of individual articles, but that's it. So if anybody has run across a website that has these scanned in, I looked at the Antique Museum website that has a lot of this kind of thing scanned in that you can download. They didn't have it. They got a lot of magazines. They didn't have this one. So I'm looking for that now, because apparently I somehow lost all my other copies. I'm surprised I still have this one. Okay. That's another thing I liked about these old magazines is the ads, where they tell you all the features and stuff like that. So number one, it gives me ideas of things to look for on eBay or Craigslist. Number two, when I do find something, it gives me information that's typically not in the listing and maybe I can't find on the internet. So here is a Lowell. I believe these were made in the UK. Pretty good receivers. Here's a Lowell HF 250. And it's sold, did they tell you how much it's? I guess it was pretty expensive, because they don't tell you how much how much it costs. They tell you the option cost. No, they don't tell you. Oh, here it is, right there. 799 pounds, which I don't know what the exchange rate to dollars back then was, but typically I think it was over 1 to 1, so this would have been over $800 for US dollars. $800. So that would be a good find if you could find it on eBay. Okay, moving right along. Here's some more great ads, all kinds of radios on here. Here's the Sony SW100 I was talking about. It sold for $189 back then in 1996. Now, this radio I ran across on eBay about a week ago. Someone had this for sale. And I thought, yeah, it's not that great, just looking at it. I didn't know anything about it. And so I put a watch on it, but the price on this thing, the bids, went skyrocketing. And I'm like, what for? It's kind of like a, pretty blosh receiver. Well, according to this article, it's a pretty good receiver. So I missed out on that one. But I think it went for, I don't know, over $150. And I'm just trying to see if they mentioned how much it would cost. Maybe I can find one in an ad. Well, they were really detailed about this scanner. Schematics, not scanner, it's radio. Schematics and everything. Must have been a pretty good radio. Let's see what else we can find. Now here's the article on filters in receivers. These are crystal filters that you find in old receivers. And it talks about salvaging these crystals because they're pretty expensive if you have to buy them nowadays to use in other radios. Another big ad. Here's the Yaesu FRG 100. Apparently this was a pretty good radio, or is a pretty good radio. Here's a article on building your own audio signal processor. Oh, here is an ad. Let me zoom in on this one. This is when Win Radio, which probably was, maybe you could consider it one of the first SDRs, because it was a board, a PC board that plugged in your PC, and it was a radio, and then you use the software to talk to it. It was quite expensive too. Says it sells for £409 or thereabouts. Kind of expensive. See what else we have here. Yeah, that's a pretty long article on filters. Now there's an AOR 7030, which I believe was a HF radio. I don't think it was UHF or VHF. Yeah, I think it was just HF. I don't know how good it was. It was pretty much sought after, so it must have been pretty good. I don't know. Now here is what I bought this magazine for originally. Here's this review of the MFJ 784B, which had just come out in this time frame, 1996. And I was trying to determine whether I should buy one of these. They were quite expensive back then. They were like $300. I never did buy one. It's way out of my price range. More ads. Again, it continues on with that review. Let me zoom back out. And here's a review of the Sony ICF SW1000T. And it says it does have a stereo cassette recorder. I've never heard of this. That's the thing, Get on the internet, start searching around, you can find all kinds of stuff. Oh yeah, here it is. The cassette recorder is on the back of it. Wow. Lots of details on this. That was the one thing I liked about this particular magazine, and their articles went into quite a bit of depth about the particular item they were reviewing or talking about. Satellite TV news for a while there, that was a big thing to have your own big dish, which I still have one in my backyard. I can't get it down. It's too much work for me to get it down. Someday it'll fall down. I couldn't believe when I put that up, a friend of mine helped me. And I said, you know, I don't know I'm going to really use this very much, but I'm going to put it up anyway. And I put it up using wood, a wood 4x4 pressure treated piece of wood. And my friend laughed at me. He says, you know, it's going to fall apart. If you really want to put that up, you need, you know, a steel pole to put it on. Well, I didn't want to spend that kind of money for a steel pole, and I didn't know if I really would use it very much. Well, that was 30 years ago. And would you believe that wooden pole, it's a 4x4 pressure treated piece of lumber, is still standing, and the antenna is still standing. Unfortunately, the programming you used to be able to get, which was a lot of fun because you get a lot of stuff for free, has gone away and replaced by these little dishes. And my next door neighbor trees have grown up so high and so big that the dish can't even see the satellites if they were available to see. Okay, we're just about through this. Here's an article on the air bands. Here's an article on scanning. So I guess these are regular articles that they had every month. Here's an article on amateur radio satellites. Actually, this is NOAA satellites, which I was heavy into receiving transmissions from the NOAA satellites of pictures of the Earth, and that was really cool, which you could still do nowadays, and it doesn't cost that much. I think that's about it. Here's another monthly article on decoding data and where to find it. I think that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. They even had a trading post where you could buy and sell stuff, used equipment. And then here's an index of past reviews. You just click here and see if they reviewed. No, they didn't review up until this time. And maybe it wasn't available yet. The Grundig Satellite 800. Maybe it hadn't come out yet. You got a lot of Grundig reviews. Yeah, it only goes up to 700. So maybe 800 wasn't out yet. Oh, here's a nice radio. ICOM. Let me zoom out so you can see the full ad. ICOM made some great, and still do, have some great receivers. Besides their amateur radio transceivers, they have some great receivers. I have the IC-R71, predecessors to this one, and it was an excellent radio until it got hit by a power surge, and it slowly over the years started dying. Power supply went out. I had that repaired. Then a couple of the bands went out, and now the last thing about a year ago, the audio went out. So I think it was overstressed, to say the least. And here's some more Lowell radios. There's a complete line of their radios at that time. So that's it. Nice little magazine back then. Like I said, if anybody knows of a source on the internet for back issues of this magazine that have been scanned in, that are put in the public domain, please let me know. Again, it's Short Space Wave Magazine. As it says up here, you're just not a serious listener without SWM. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please give me a thumbs up. Have a nice day.